I'm Pastor Aaron Harris, and this video is about investing like Warren Buffett. And in this video, you'll learn why investing in the S&P 500 index fund is the best investment strategy that we have today. Warren Buffett is the most famous investor that we have living today, and probably the most famous investor ever. Investing has led him to be a multi-billionaire and one of the richest people on the earth today. He currently leads Berkshire Hathaway, which is the sixth largest publicly traded company in the world. And although he leads this large company and has opportunities for people to invest their money with him, he encourages people to invest their money into the index fund, the S&P 500. Warren Buffett believes in the S&P 500 index fund so much that he frequently speaks about how when he dies, 90% of his wife's wealth will be transferred to the S&P 500 by her trustee. The S&P 500 is the best gauge on how stocks are doing in the United States of America. And not only stocks, it's one of the best ways to engage or to understand how our economy is doing as a whole. The S&P 500 is made up of 500 of some of the largest publicly traded companies in America. The S&P 500 is highly diversified and it has companies from 11 different sectors, including sectors like information technology, healthcare, financials, real estate, energy, materials, and many more. The number one reason that you should invest in the S&P 500 index fund is because the S&P 500 index fund is representative of how we're doing in America economically. So if you want to bet on America, then you can put your money in the S&P 500. The second reason that you should invest in the S&P 500 is because it is too big to fail. Everything is invested in the S&P 500. If we lost those investments, if 500 of the biggest companies in America ceased to exist, we would lose too many jobs, too much income. Our economy would be completely wiped away. So it's our job to make sure that we could do everything that we can to keep the S&P 500 and the stock market going well. That's why we have all these government bailouts and things like that, because they want to make sure that our economy is good. So I know that when I invest in the S&P 500, that America is going to do everything that they can to make sure that that is growing and doing well, because if that fails, then America fails. The third reason that you should invest in the S&P 500 index fund is because it has low fees. If you go out and you try to do individual stocks and you have investors investing your money for you, then they're going to charge you high fees, and they often can't even get the returns that comes with the S&P 500, and they have no guarantee that they can or will continually beat the S&P 500 even if they have beat it in the past. The reason that the S&P 500's fees are so low is because they are passively managed. They don't have 1,000 people and thousands of people trying to figure out what investments to make and what they should do. Instead, they just follow the index and what that index is doing. The fourth reason that you should invest in the S&P 500 is because it is highly visual. That means that everyone in the world has access to look at the S&P 500. It'll be on every news channel that you watch, every newspaper that you open up. It will tell you the status of the S&P 500. And so I like things that are highly visible, because if you invest in something like a mutual fund, then you have to go and continually check it and make sure it's going good and know where it stands, and make sure that you get on your app or your computer and that you're closely monitoring it to know that something crazy doesn't happen. But with the S&P 500, if something crazy happened, you best believe it will be on the news and you will not be able to miss it. It'll be on the news, it'll be on social media, it'll be everywhere that you look. So I like the fact that the S&P 500 index fund is highly visible. So if you're trying to figure out what to do with your money or where you should invest, what you should do is listen to one of the wisest, smartest investors, the richest investors that ever lived, that tells us all the best thing that we can do is bet on America and put our money into the S&P 500. And I say if the S&P 500 fails, then that means everything else in our economy failed and our dollar and money is worth absolutely nothing. And so we're going to do everything that we can. America is going to do everything that American can to make sure that the S&P 500 continues to thrive, that those businesses continue to do well, and it continues to increase and to grow. So if you're putting your money in retirement and you don't know what fund you should put your money in, I recommend putting your money in the index fund S&P 500. So if you want to learn more about investments, finances, and money, then continue watching the videos on this channel, which will take you deeper.